What we as attorneys are doing is not working, and it is literally killing us. Welcome to the Happier Attorney. I'm Bree DeLong, and on this channel we talk about how you as an attorney can create a life and practice that works for you, that fits you, not what you think you should be doing, so that you can have a life that you love and still practice law, or decide, you want to do something else, which is fine too. But the point is that you are a happier person. And we talk about some practice management things, specifically flat fees and money issues and mindset issues, and we go deep. But what we don't do is positive thinking nonsense. We go straight to the heart and we go deep. So we don't put whipped cream on a pile of crap. We also don't do the normal attorney thing and say, well, we'll think about it, we'll study it, blah, 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 okay? And then not do anything. Right? So I'm Bree DeLong, and I am the creator and the author of The Happier Attorney, and we are going to dive deep. Now, here's a warning. There are going to be issues brought up in the videos in March that can be upsetting. It might bring up some schmutz in you. So, maybe not watch these on the way to, right before you have a Zoom hearing or something. I was going to say on the way to court, but we don't do that anymore. So, and maybe not for young people around. So the reason that I'm going on a rant this month is talking about attorney suicide. And here's my CYA, I'm an attorney. I'm not a mental health professional, okay? But please hear me out and get some real help if you need real help. And by the way, I have yet to meet an attorney, and I've been practicing for 24 years and in the legal community for even before law school, okay? I have yet to meet an attorney who could not use some help. So if you think, no, I'm good, I don't need help, I'm here to tell you, I'll be the person to tell you, you're probably full of crap, okay? So, I know, welcome to my channel. So, these episodes are going to bring up some issues again. So, but if something is getting brought up for you, pay attention to that. That is a warning sign. Pain is there in our lives to tell us something is wrong. And we can ignore it, or we can, take some pain medication to make it go away, but it's there for a reason. So if watching these videos brings up some pain, please pay attention to that. I'm going to talk to you like I would talk to a friend of mine who was in crisis and who needed some straight talk, okay? So this video specifically is for those who are really struggling or maybe on the edge. And again, get some help, get some professional help. But we're going to talk about why we as attorneys don't do that, okay? The truth about why we don't do that. So 4 attorneys have killed themselves in January in Kentucky, a relatively small state. 4, attorneys are 6 times more likely than other professions to kill themselves. Again, how's that working for us? How are things going for us? Not well. According to the news reports, it's mostly males who kill themselves. I'm not male. I can't give you advice from that perspective, but I can tell you what I see and what I have personally experienced. And we're just talking about the suicides right now because it's on the news, but let's get clear. There are a whole lot of attorneys out there who may not be suicidal, but they are still trying to deal with things. They're still self-medicating. They're still using drugs to self-medicate. They're still drinking way too much to self-medicate. They are still overworking to self-medicate. Yeah, when you're working 60, 80 hours a week, you can wrap it up in a bow and say that you're trying to be successful, you're trying to make it. What you're actually doing is working so hard so that you don't have time to feel the feelings that you don't want to feel. Or at least every workaholic I've ever met. That's what they're doing, okay? But again, what we're doing isn't working. So I'll tell you, I've been there. Let me tell you about my life from 2006 to 2008, 2009. On the outside, looking in, it looked great. I was a young attorney. I was doing my empire building thing. I had great office space on the water. I had just purchased with cash, my 10-person solid wood conference table with leather chairs. I had associates. I had the whole 9 yards. I was making good money. I was doing a good job for my clients. I was married. I had kids. I had the Mercedes. And my life was falling apart. Completely falling apart. I was married to a very functional late-stage alcoholic who was a little emotionally abusive and who was a complete energy vampire. I had my oldest son who was going through his own stuff. My mother had just passed away, and I was holding it together by the skin of my teeth. And there were so many days where I was just looking out the window when I should be working, when I should be doing stuff, because looking out the window was all I could do. And there were times I really thought I was losing it, where I remember one time driving past a mental institution going, looks kind of nice, not really joking. And while I don't think that I was to the point where I would have ever taken action, and I didn't take action on suicide, you do look at that truck coming towards you going, I wonder what would happen if I just turned the wheel. I'm admitting this so that it's okay for you to admit it. And quite frankly, I was at a workshop a couple years ago with highly successful people, highly together people. And there were about 15 of us in this small group. And someone said that they had thought about suicide and they were very embarrassed about that and ashamed. And the leader said, who here has thought about suicide? Every hand went up. Every single hand went up. So first, you are not alone. You're not going crazy. You are not alone. Okay? And what happened with me is, thank goodness that there was some internal voice that told me, get out. If you keep going, if you don't make some drastic change, you're going to die. Whether it be from suicide, whether it be from alcohol. And I didn't even drink that much at the time, but I was self-medicating. When I did drink, I was self-medicating. That's why I was drinking. And something inside me told me, you've got to get out. You've got to make real change here. And thank goodness for that little voice. And thank goodness that I listened to it. And I left my home. I left my husband. And with full intention of saving the marriage. But as I started to heal, and I got into great counseling, and I started to heal, my bar started to rise, and our marriage didn't make it. And I had to do a lot of internal work. But I was getting closer to an edge than I was comfortable getting to. And one of the things that really helped me was I had to let go of my ego. I had to tell myself, you know what, if you lose all of this, okay, it's better than losing you. And thank goodness the economy tanked. The economy tanked in 2008. My life is in shambles. The economy tanks. Clients aren't coming in. The clients I had weren't paying me. And so things kind of took care of themselves with the practice winding down. The writing was clear on the wall. I had to get rid of some staff. Others got great jobs ahead of time. They could see the sinking ship. And so I closed my practice. I knew I had to simplify. I knew I had to shrink and take care of me first. And that meant getting smaller. And so I closed my practice and I moved it. I moved it from Olympia, Washington to Seattle. And I started over. And it hurt financially. And I could start to breathe. And I knew I built it once, I can build it again. It's fine. And it was embarrassing, and it was, nobody likes to admit defeat, especially as attorneys. And I had to reframe it in my head. This was not admitting defeat. This was taking care of me and regrouping and backing up and going on the right path. Okay? So I want to talk a little bit about our profession. This is going to be a longer video. Our legal culture is so blanked up, is so effed up. I mean, it is so toxic. It is toxic. We have this culture where we can't admit mistakes. Heaven help us if we make a mistake. We can't show any weakness, which, i.e. we can't show we're human beings. We have to be strong all of the time. We have to have it together all of the time. We must be perfect all of the time, which, good luck with that. And we can't even show emotions. Okay? What do we do when we see each other? Well, we used to see each other in court. How's it going? Oh, great. How's business? Great. Never better. Lies. Like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you know what? Nobody's life is perfect. And we don't feel free to be able to express that. And I'm not talking about, somebody says hi in the halls and you vomit on them and tell them your life story. But we are not okay with being vulnerable in this profession. That is very looked down upon. Very looked down upon. And look at how we frame working. Gotta work hard, gotta work hard, gotta work hard. More hours, the closer to God you get. We have these requirements of working hard that are absurd, unattainable. Unattainable if you ever want to have a life. And that's the standard. It's crazy. And if you don't meet it, you're a failure. We value overwork. That's how we can tell who's a good attorney, is how hard they're working. I have seen posts on Facebook from attorneys bragging about them working at 3 a.m. on a Friday. Yeah, that's not something to brag about. I've seen posts from attorneys bitching that their associates don't want to work 80 hours a week. And how do they think they're going to get ahead? That's nuts. That's nuts. And that mindset, not just with the overworking, but our entire culture, that mindset, does not make you successful. It doesn't make you a good attorney. And it's killing us. Here are some of the issues. We don't feel safe to admit that we need help. And I know that most states have a bar assistance program, which is wonderful, if we felt free to use it. And I know that when I was in crisis mode, went on in my head, but I wasn't an alcoholic, I wasn't a drug addict, and I didn't want to get on the bar's radar. And no, I had not committed any ethics violations. I was very diligent in my work. I don't know how I hadn't been dropping balls, but I didn't. But who wants to be on the bar's radar? Okay? And I don't know what's confidential in that program and what's not, or what they say is confidential and really not. So it needs to feel safe for you to reach out to get help. And it needs to be safe to admit a mistake. That has to be safe. And I'm not just talking about like committing malpractice or an ethics violation, just any mistake. What happens? We're humiliated, we are embarrassed, we are any mistake, and then you see it in a pleading to a judge later on. Like, come on, y'all. Let's act like human beings to each other. And when we do make a mistake, it feels like our life is going to crumble. It feels like death. So, and then we have this competitive machismo BS where, we just have to put on this front, and we can't be honest with each other, and we can't be honest with ourselves. So, let's get real a little bit. What we do is absolutely important. We absolutely need to be accurate in our work, and we're human beings. And we're not brain surgeons, okay? Brain surgeons, can't make a mistake. Somebody actually is going to die, okay? Is somebody actually going to die if we make a mistake? Probably not. So let's get a little real on what happens if you actually make a mistake, okay? And when one of the other issues that I see with attorneys is that our entire identity is wrapped up in being an attorney. We don't consider it a job. We consider it a calling, which is fine, but if your identity is completely wrapped up in being an attorney, then the thought of not being an attorney, again, feels like you're killing yourself, like you're cutting your own throat. And that has to change. So if we're being And if we're being really honest with ourselves, I know people are not going to like this, but we also don't have any leadership in this profession in regard to our toxic culture. And I'm specifically talking about judges and the Bar Association. And we'll get to that a little bit more later on. But we have to do this ourselves. It's up to us. Our colleagues are actually dying, a very slow death or a quick death. And we don't need a study. In the news about these 4 attorneys, the Bar Association was going to do a study. Okay, oh my God. Come on, y'all. We don't need a study. Ask any attorney what's going on and they'll tell you if it's safe to do so. They will tell you we don't need a study. Most of the suicides that I've heard of are from men. So I'm specifically talking to you men, and I'll tell you this right now. Nobody cares if you're an attorney. Nobody cares how much money you make. The people who love you, love you. Your kids don't care. They want you alive. So talking to the people who are struggling right now, let's get real. You're not going to work yourself out of this. We attorneys are smart, and our brain likes to tell us things that quite frankly aren't true. You've got 2 roads. One road is, there's only one ending to this road. There's only one ending to this story, and that's with you dead. Dead by suicide or a slow death by alcohol poisoning, drug overdose, a long drawn out suicide by overworking, heart attack, all of the rest. Okay? And we think we can, get off that road later on. That's not how it works, right? The other road is to take drastic action and stop and get on another road. And that's going to be painful. And those are your 2 choices. It might be embarrassing, it might be costly, and it's really scary. But the other road keeps you alive. And again, I would remind you, pain is here for a reason. And I'd ask you to ask yourself, what are you truly afraid of? If you get on that other road, and that other road is stopping this train, taking time off, addressing what you need to address, and taking significant time to make your emotional and mental health your first priority. Just saying, stop. I'm stopping this today. Like, I'm not taking new clients. I'll take whatever financial hits I need to take. I need to get into treatment if I need to get into treatment. I need to see a mental health counselor today. And if that means I have to postpone a hearing, so be it. If that means I have to cancel an initial appointment, so be it. But those are your 2 roads, okay? And I know why you don't do it, or I think I know why. You think you're going to lose everything. I did. I knew I needed significant time off. I knew that I needed to cocoon and heal and deal with my crap. And I thought that if I did that, I would lose everything. And that's really scary. And then when you ask yourself, is that true? Maybe you'll lose your practice. Maybe you would even, lose your house. Better than your life, right? But let's just say, just for, shit and giggles, let's just say that you are so far deep in this spiral that you actually are likely to lose your license or your livelihood. Some of you are even facing jail. Okay, one of the guys that committed suicide was facing jail. This might be hard to hear, but so what? Isn't it better than being dead? Would that, even if the worst case happened, which quite frankly, most of the time it wouldn't, does that mean you'll never make a living again? No, of course not. That's absurd. And I know we as attorneys have this I'm a practicing attorney or I'm working at Starbucks. Those are my 2 options. And that's complete, utter nonsense. That's rubbish. Those are not your 2 options. If the worst case happened, does it mean you could never hold your head up again? No. It's better than being dead. Your family wants you alive. They don't care if you're an attorney. Your friends want you alive. They don't care if you're an attorney. And how do I know that there's life after this? I've seen it. I've seen people have great lives, even when they've been disbarred. I'm not saying that that's what you want. It's to be avoided. That's why you get off the road as soon as you can, so that you're not at the end of the road where you're getting disbarred as well. But there are also attorneys who have stopped practicing and they're perfectly happy. And they're making money. They're writers, they're bakers, they're coaches, they own restaurants. They're doing lots of other things. Those are not your only two options, okay? And most of the time, regardless of where you are on the road, it can be fixed, especially with a bar association. It can be fixed, but not if you keep going down the road, okay? And let me tell you about Frank. Frank was the husband of a friend of mine. A close friend of mine. And Frank was a family law attorney in Washington, outside of Seattle. Good attorney, conscientious, and he was on the bad road. He was taking on too much work. He wasn't charging enough, so he had to take on more work. And he was in a car accident, probably had some brain damage that wasn't diagnosed, wasn't working quite as he normally had worked. And balls started dropping. And he wouldn't get help. Wouldn't get into counseling, wouldn't stop taking new clients. Had to keep up the facade. Well, then the bar complaints started. And the calls, why hasn't this been done? You said you were going to do this. And, here we are circling the drain. On a Tuesday, he had his first bar hearing. The Friday before, he shot himself in his office. He left 4 kids and a wife, all of whom loved him dearly, and who will never recover. Who will never recover. And when we have a culture that it's better to kill yourself than face a bar hearing, that's a problem. A client of mine, and when I say a client, I mean attorney, one of my coaching clients, likewise, he was a recovering alcoholic, had been sober for decades, and he was burned out. Things were not working. He didn't have bar complaints. He wasn't dropping the ball like that. And he, quite frankly, had a head injury as well. And when I got to him, I said, well, let's talk, let's get real about you working. Because he knew he needed a break. I knew he needed a break. I said, if you didn't work for the next week, honestly, would you commit malpractice? Because he had said, I can't stop, I can't take any time off. But when I said, okay, let's look at the next week. Would you commit malpractice if you took a week off? Well, it's getting uncomfortable, but no. Okay. And I said, so let's talk about the money. Do you have 2 weeks of a buffer? Well, yeah. Okay. If someone told you you could not work ever again, what would you do? Well, I have savings. And so then I asked him, what would you do financially? What other resources do you have available? Because we don't even think I actually do have resources available. And he said, well, I have these 2 luxury cars that I don't even drive. And I said, if you just sold one, how much time would that buy you as far as expenses? 6 months. We just bought him 6 months of peace. So the first thing that I'd ask you is, let's get real. Cut out this nonsense of your life will end if you take some time off. Let's get real about where you are, because very few of us attorneys are on the healthy road. Whether it's at the beginning or at the end, most of us are on the road that is only going to lead to misery. And for many of us, death. And I'm not trying to be dramatic here. So let's get real about where you are and how unhappy you are and whether you actually need a break. Whether you need to stop the presses, stop the phone ringing, stop this practice right now and go get some help. Some of you are not that far down the road, and you can start now by building in so that you don't get further on down the road. Okay? But let's get really real about the current situation and be honest with yourself. It's not about being honest with anybody else. Be honest with yourself and let go of this ego nonsense. No one's going to think poorly of you. And you have to come first. Okay? Your mental and emotional state has to come first. So this next month, I'm going to be giving more videos on, okay, now what? Now what? But stage one is just admitting you really have an issue, okay? And not lying to yourself about it, okay? And how do you know the truth? You know it in your gut. You feel it. You're not rationalizing. You're not giving yourself all the reasons, okay? So when you start, well, I can't, you're rationalizing and you're lying to yourself. So this whole monthly videos is probably one of the most important series that I'm ever going to do. I'm going to ask that you like and that you share and subscribe. Why? Because you don't know who needs to hear this. We're all hiding out there. Some attorney that you know needs to watch this video, needs to hear this series, and you don't know who they are. So the more you share it, the better off the chances that they will see it. Number two, for the YouTube algorithm, if the more people share, the more people like, the more it gets brought up so that attorneys can actually find it and see it. So this is Brita for the Happier Attorney. Please like, subscribe, for, if not for yourself, for other people. And remember that if we take small steps, we can change our culture. We can change our legal culture. It's up to us, okay? And as always, if you want to know more about my work, you can hit the link below and look at britalong.com. So stay tuned for this month's videos, and we'll see you next week.